Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Gallagher.
And rather than being repetitive all the time, I'll just say ditto.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about vinegar today and fish oils, which are things that obviously making salads and stuff, I've used vinegar for years, all different kinds of vinegar. But I was never aware, or with all the years I've been cooking things, that the part that vinegar can play in finishing off a meal. And, a very small amount added to a sauce or something else, what big the difference it makes. And fish oils are the same thing. So vinegar obviously has been around for thousands of years, for millennia. Everybody remembers the old, and those who, I don't know whether they still take Latin anymore, but I remember garum talking about way back when was talking about vinegar that they use for their food. But it's meat, it's ethanol, it's alcohol, it's fermented through an acetic acid bacteria, and it becomes it's a way that they started to use. The French really started it, and the name really comes from vinaigre, which means, translated literally means wine sour. So it's sour wine. That's where the vinegar comes from. And it's made, there's about 6 kinds of vinegar. There's the distilled vinegar, which is more used for cleaning and commercial stuff. I think you've got wine vinegar, cider vinegar, rice vinegar, malt vinegar, and flavored vinegars, and then of course the famous Italian one, the balsamic vinegar. And they're all made by taking the leaves of wine or the musts of fruit. When they mash it to get juice and anything, but what's left, that's what they ferment. And they put it in barrels and put it down eventually to, it turns into a liquid. And it's the ability, that I said, as I said, it all comes from using vinaigrettes and things. But now I've learned to. Another day I had a very sweet sauce I was doing with a sweet potato and bacon and pecans and brown sugar, which is kind of a little overbearing. But I put a couple of tablespoons, or a tablespoon probably, of apple cider vinegar in it. And it just changed the whole composition around, and gave it a whole new flavor. Now, fish sauces, I never had any use for those. I remember I bought one because I thought I'd try it, and I remember opening up, and the smell was unbelievable. It smells just like fish, and I thought I would not use that. Then lo and behold, I realized I've been using fish sauces for years, as is anybody doing under the guise of Worcestershire sauce, which is what that really is. It's distilled vinegar enhanced with salted anchovies. And the name comes from Worcestershire, England. That's where it was invented. But and they've toned it down a little bit. They've added some molasses and some other things so when you open the bottle, you get that fishy smell. But basically, that's what it was. It's a fish sauce. Fish sauces are concocted by taking, again, fish, but meaning that fish being anchovies, salting it, putting it in a barrel, and pressing it down. And fermentation starts taking place again. And it through osmosis, and just, they get down, you get this very, very salty liquid. They compress it. And it's, again, it just adds things to food that people just haven't thought of. You can really use it in almost any place that you use salt. And of course, the new term that's come up in the last 5 or 6, 7 years in cooking and tasting is called umami. And we never really got involved with umami. I think, huh?
I said, who's mommy?
Yo mommy, not
yeah,
mommy.
There you go.
Umami. Anyway, it's something that we never could experience, I think, in Eastern European Western cooking as opposed to Asian. But that's where the umami comes from, is that it balances off all the flavors, heightens them, almost like putting lemon on fish or other stuff, except to a greater extent. So buy some fish oil. it's a good thing. You can use it. You can hold your nose when you drop it, but once it gets in there, the fishiness goes away, and it just does its little miracle, miracle of flavor enhancing. And it's something that's new to me. I mean, well, I'll say within the last few years, but I'm sure more people, if they try it, will be, be very satisfied with the result. So that's about all I've got with my fishy story today.
There we go. Yeah, I think you and I and Sean also were fascinated by the Samin Nosrat episode on salts and the fermentation of soy sauce and all the different ways in which they create umami through salt, especially in Japanese cuisine.
Yeah, it's true.
It's extreme. I use soy sauce a lot now in place of salt, just because it's more complex, even though it's contributing to saltiness, and it's quite something. I actually even used some Vietnamese fish sauce in meatloaf recently in place of Worcestershire, and it tasted great.
Yeah, it's something, as I say, at my age, I hate to say the European cooking, I guess, but I never it never appeared until the Asian influence became this fusion cooking started becoming more popular, and people got more into the cuisines of Vietnam and Thailand. Fish sauce is a big thing in pad thai. Everybody loves pad thai. Fish sauce is one of the main ingredients in that. I don't think people will realize that.
Oh no, not at all. I mean, Americans would try to make it with peanut butter, and the primary flavor elements are fish sauce, tamarind, and dried shrimp. All of which are incredibly redolent on their own, but taste amazing together. So on the theme of vinegar, what I wanted to talk about today were gastriques, switchels, and shrubs. The gastrique, of course, is from French cooking, but you're seeing a lot of gastriques in cocktails now because essentially, it's taking the idea of a simple syrup, adding vinegar into the mix, and you're bringing some acidity with your syrup, which
so a gastrique is adding vinegar to the sugar syrup, you mean?
Exactly.
Flavored syrup.
So it's sort of the French version of sweet and sour, and that's what I'm going to be using in the cocktail that I'm going to make today. But on the subject of vinegar as a beverage, it actually has an incredibly long history. The word shrub comes from the same Arabic word root as sherbet and syrup, and it's the verb form of to drink. And the shrub became popular as an alcohol-based beverage in England, and when folks immigrated to America, it transformed into more of a non-alcoholic beverage, but it's based on the same principle, which is that you could preserve fruit with vinegar in the same way that you would preserve fish with salt, which brings us right back to fish sauce. So obviously it became popular for taking away impurities. Sailors on ships were not drinking the best water, so if you added some sugar, you added some vinegar for sanitizing purposes, and then you added some molasses in many cases rather than sugar, that would produce a switchel. And it was very, very popular in the 18th and 19th centuries. Sort of the death of the shrub as a popular beverage occurred because of refrigeration. People didn't need to preserve fruit in vinegar or other citrics. But it's having a comeback. I think part of it is people looking for anything new and different to do with cocktails, but also because kombucha has become so popular. And shrubs are not as fermented as a kombucha is, but they are fermented. They're actually very similar. You're talking about fermenting fruit and vinegar versus fermenting tea with the SCOBY, which would be your kombucha. So anyway, not to wax on and on, we are going to do a awesome fall cocktail. We're going to start off with our bourbon. In a professional bar setting, you put your inexpensive ingredients in first in case you make a mistake, but at home, you don't have to worry about that. So we're going to do about 2 ounces of our Evan Williams bourbon. Then we're going to add a concoction of hibiscus and apple cider and ginger, which I just cooked down. So that's going to give us some lovely color. And then I'm going to take my gastrique, and this is a gastrique I made from a beautiful Ohio apple, the real deal. You can see it was actually on a tree. And I cooked that down with sugar and white wine vinegar. And this is our little gastrique here. Actually, we can just.
How much of that do you use?
It's just, like probably two tablespoons. You don't want to go bananas because of the vinegar, but on the other hand, we'll just do a little smidgen more of this. On the other hand, when you do cook it down into a gastrique or make it into a shrub with fruit, the acidity does go down. Take my little jar shaker, give this a nice shake to release all the aromatics. One thing to think about in cooking with vinegar or making cocktails with vinegar is some people do not have positive vinegar associations, and the smell may not be to their liking. So perhaps do it when they are not home. I learned this the hard way. All right, so we're going to take our cocktail. We're going to pass this through our little sieve here. Still got it, freehand. And ta-da! So you have a beautiful bourbon, hibiscus, apple cider, and apple gastrique cocktail. Got a great color. And it is absolutely delicious. So
I would ask to have a taste, but your arm is not long enough.
it's not long enough. Can't do it. Can't do it, but you can definitely make it at home. It's very easy. I just steep the hibiscus tea in cider and let it reduce. So we'd like to thank you all for tuning into the vinegar episode. And if you like the show, subscribe. And if you really like it, tell your friends too as well. Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. Good to see you.
All right.
Enjoy your
Talk to y'all
cocktail.
soon. All right. Good night.